also based on what the law of the land says, what the law of the country says to bring about the inclusion in its right manner. So I'm going to talk about Build Back Better with the accessibility and inclusion lens. And if you can see in the first slide itself, there is the entire community of people. It's not just people with disabilities, but there are all the more many other people that we see in and around our neighborhoods. We see them in the communities, we see them in the cities, and these are all the people who would require accessibility. Just a 1 minute slide on what my organization is all about. I'm representing Samarthyam. It's a disabled people organization that we founded in 1993. We have a special consultative status with United Nations Economic and Social Council since 2015. I'm also a member of CSO Standing Committee, NITI Aayog, and the mission of Samarthyam is let's make the world accessible. In our 25 years of journey in the pioneering effort to make India accessible, we have seen many ups and downs. Why I'm saying ups and downs? Because earlier, as you all know, that accessibility or any rights of persons with disabilities were taken as a welfare issue, or it was considered as a charity mode. And then we moved on to the social mode, and then finally to the inclusion mode. There was also in between this medical mode where there was so much of stress on rehabilitation, on therapy of people with disabilities, rather than taking them as people with rights, with human rights, I must say, and also as people who can contribute to the society. So the entire paradigm shift from welfare approach to inclusion approach was a journey full of challenges. And we, the entire team of Samarthyam, as you can see in the picture right now, we struggled a lot working from scratch, working on the national accessibility standards of the country, doing a lot of active advocacy, amending the codes and guidelines and standards, and also contributing to the Rights of Persons with Disability Act and continuing accessibility audits of the buildings, of the built environment, transport infrastructure, as well as heritage monuments. So, to our credit is heritage monuments like the Red Fort, the Qutub Minar, and also we audited the Rashtrapati Bhavan and the Prime Minister office and so on. So our dream is to have the incredible India as an inclusive India. And as empaneled access auditors with Government of India, we have audited more than 9,000 buildings so far in 25 states of the country. We are certified national resource persons and trainers by Government of India. We are also members steering committee Accessible India campaign, which was launched on the 3rd of December 2015 by the Prime Minister's office and the Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities. We are also the brand ambassador for Disabled People Organization for the Disability Inclusive Agenda, which is the Sustainable Development Goals implementation and monitoring till the 2030 time. To begin with accessibility, I just want to make sure that we are on the same page, all of us. We have the faculty, the students, and we have the administration from the university. One thing that we need to understand is that whenever we are providing accessibility, it has to be a continuum of accessibility and just not the pyramids or piecemeal approach or just islands of accessibility. So when we started doing this work, the advocacy on accessibility provisions, we found that people had that it's a very costly proposition. Or we found that it required a lot of funds, but it is not so. The fact is that if we do refurbishment, it can cost us 1 to 2% of the total project cost. And the cost is negligible if we put the accessibility standards and elements in the planning stage itself. So, for example, if we are designing a school or a college or a university, and in the designing stage, we say that we need to provide ramp, lifts, tactile paver, braille signage, accessible washrooms. So if we put it in the designing stage, the things becomes easier and it becomes very cheaper, not expensive. But if we break a building which is already built and then we try to make it from the scratch, and when we put it retrofitting a ramp or washroom or a accessible lift, then it becomes a little costlier affair. Another myth which has been which people had there in minds is that if we provide a ramp or a so-called quote unquote handicap toilet, the building will become accessible. But it's not so. Having a ramp or accessible toilet can help people who use wheelchairs, but it will not help other people who require other kind of information, communication, or people who are with speech and hearing impairment, people who are blind, people with cerebral palsy, and many other 21 categories that we have in the Act right now. So, just not the ramp and the toilet, but so much more to do, and I'm going to give you a glimpse of it. So, I'll begin with the legal compliance, although we know that we have the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, which was signed and ratified by the Government of India in 2007. We also have signed the Incheon Strategy, which is by the ESCAP, United Nations ESCAP, to make the right real in the Asian and the Pacific decade of persons with disabilities, starting in 2013 and ending in 2022. We are just on the verge of it. We have the Accessible India campaign, which was launched in 2015, and also we have the very strong, powerful, and meaningful Rights of Persons with Disability Act 2016. The Section 1 and Section 40 to 46 talks about accessibility and also legal compliance for accessibility standards in the built environment and the transportation system, as well as making the website and all information communication strategies accessible. Uh, why we are talking about accessibility? We are talking about accessibility as a opportunity for equity and inclusion. And we all know that there are moral, legal, and commercial advantages. Some of us might talk about moral because it adds value to whatever we do, legal because we cannot violate the law, and commercial because there is, as we all know, there's more than 15 to 20% population of India which is disabled. So if we exclude them, we are going to lose a big chunk of economy. If we include them, if we make our markets accessible, if we make our transportation accessible, then they travel with their families, they come out with their families and friends to buy and shop. So there is a commercial advantage it's added to it, and it's like untapping the market which was not tapped earlier. So we need to tap this market, this uh, uh, market which might be a minority for others, but it's a big majority because 15 to 20% population of India is not a small number. We also know that disability is universal. It can happen to anyone at any point of time. Someone can have a temporary ailment like a fracture or a twisted ankle. Somebody can have a permanent disability. So it is universal, it is intersectional, cross cutting across age, gender, religion, caste, anything. And that's the reason we need to design our environment with universal provision and not special provisions. So the moment we say special provisions for people, then we are excluding them from the mainstreaming. And hence we talk about universal design. Universal design is actually a design that benefits everyone, whosoever it is, a family with young children, a pregnant lady, a child who's going to the school, a person with disability, a person with temporary ailment, a person who is fat, obese, a person with medical ailment, with temporary disabilities, anyone. So if we look at this picture right now, we'll connect with it and we'll say, oh, this is me, or this is someone in my family, my grandma, my grandpa, my daughter, my son, everybody is related to this particular picture. So now I'm talking about 99.9% of population of India are going to benefit with universal design. And who is this 0.01%? The hale and hearty, fit and fine young people who also might get some kind of a temporary ailment and in their lifetime, and they will also require the universal design. Hence, we must provide this provision, and the law also says that. Now, there are a couple of guidelines and codes that actually gives us the national accessibility standards. The first one is the Unified Building Bylaws, which keeps amending every 5 years. And with the first one we had in 2004, and in 2016 we got the latest. Then we have the National Urban Transport Policy, which came up in 2006. Again, it got amended in 2018. We have the harmonized guidelines on space standards for persons with disabilities and elderly. It came up in 2016, and we are very proud that Samathyam team was part of the entire committee where we worked on making these guidelines as a national standard. And these were adopted by the National Building Code 2016 by the Bureau of Indian Standards. And now we have the Indian National Accessibility Standards built in our country, for every engineer, architect, urban planner, or any other professional or agency that provides accessibility has to abide by the National Building Code 2016. Now, the Government of India has also adopted this universal accessibility, shifting from the barrier-free environment to a complete universal accessibility paradigm shift. And it is about creating and maintaining environments in which people can participate in ways which are equitable, dignified, maximize independence, conserve energy, are safe and affordable. So if now I personally look at this particular definition, I know this is meant for me. And I'm sure all of you who are reading right now, you will say, oh, this is meant for us. So if we are the ones, we are the people who are going to benefit with universal accessibility, why not implement it? And we have to implement it from now onwards to ensure that no one is left. I'm going to give you some examples of common barriers, and this is a small video, a very striking video that tells us that how difficult it is if the ramp is not designed in the right manner. So at times we find these kind of just makeshift arrangements. So if you see, the detailing is important. The front caster of the wheel gets, it's moving and it's not going up the ramp because there's a small level difference. So these little things also becomes a big mountain for people who are using assistive devices, and they're not able to move independently and with dignity and safety, I must say. The next is about the common barrier that we see, that we find these kind of ramps, and I call them rocket launchers, because you can't use wheelchairs on them. And even if you use walkers or you use bilateral crutches, one can easily fall or trip down these ramps. And if we see, we also have this big column coming in front of the ramp. So having this ramp is more like promoting accident rather than providing a benefit to someone who is using a wheelchair. Similarly, sorry, I just skipped that. Yeah. So this is an example of the handrails on the steps. And if you see, it's quite obvious that the handrails are falling short of the first two steps. The handrails are not there on the other side of the wall. And this will not be easy for anyone who wants support and balance to hold these kind of handrails. So what is important is that we need to see how we can provide handrails that really benefit the person who's climbing the stairs. In this photograph, I'm showing that there are handrails, but people have provided pots alongside the handrails. So a person who is, there's a woman with a visual impairment who is using white cane and trying to orient herself on the steps, gets, these pots as big barriers. So this is something that we create on our own. We try to beautify and we remove these the right element of handles to be supported and to be holded by this lady. Similarly, this is another example where we find that there's a tactile pavers, these tactile yellow colored tiles, which have been provided for the staircase, but then somebody has provided a mat on it. That means we have provided accessibility, but then we have taken away the right to use it. So these are small little things that we need to understand that if we are quite conscious of this fact, that these barriers are something which is going to impede the independent movement of people with disabilities, we should make sure that we should not provide these kind of barriers in our environment. And these are another some common examples, like we get this threshold, this iron channel gate protruding out of our classrooms. We find them in our corridors, and people with disabilities will find it as a trip hazard. In fact, for many of us, this will become a trip hazard. Then this is another picture where there's a lift, but it is marked by 2 steps. So what is the point of having a lift? Because the lift can be used by people using assisted devices, but if there are 2 steps, we won't be able to reach the lift. This is the lift buttons placed too high. So if it's too high, somebody having any kind of neuromuscular dystrophy, they won't be able to reach it. And in rural areas, also in smaller cities, we have found that people do not use any wheelchair, and they tend to move on the ground, or they use a low mobility device, which is a floor mobility device. They are also unable to reach the high lift buttons. This is the most common barrier that we've experienced everywhere in the country, and I myself have experienced it. That the toilet doors are so narrow that people using wheelchairs cannot enter the toilets. So you can understand the issue that it's a natural need to use the washrooms, the toilets, uh, quite often in the day. And if the toilets are not accessible, you're taking away the right to pee. And this is something that adds on to other physical and medical problems, such as kidney stones and many other issues like infections and urinary infections and many other medical problems. I myself had this issue that I couldn't go to the washrooms in public spaces. And in 2 years back, I had a stone that got ruptured in my gallbladder. And because of that, I'm facing so many issues, weight gain. I need to be transferred by 2 people. So there's so much of medical additions that happens if we are not making our washrooms accessible. And in universities, colleges, it is a must, because any student with disability or any teacher with disability, faculty who's coming to the college or the university, they would require to use the washrooms often. This is one common barrier that we have found, that in case people do provide accessible washrooms, but we find that the doors are very heavy. So here you see my picture. I'm trying to open the door, but I'm not able to. Then I call one of my colleagues to do it, and he is also struggling to open a sliding door. So it's easy to provide a two-way opening door rather than a sliding door, because most of the time the channels get stuck, and if the maintenance is not good, we will not able to use it. This is the last slide on common barriers, which we find that most of the time the urinals are marked by a step level difference. And if there is a step level, people using crutches also will have difficulty. And also, if you see the space in front of the urinals is too less. So this man is not able to balance himself, because he's not able to place his feet completely on the stair, and that's why there might be issues of falling down frequently and developing fractures and adding on to other medical problems, lifelong problems. I'm sorry, this is skipping. So I just want to stress upon, because I've been talking about the IGNOU as well, that there are a lot of regional centers, and I'm talking about the Tripura University right now, that we used to make sure that all the buildings that you have in your university or all the colleges should have accessible facilities, And what we need to have is that the ramps at all level differences, handrails on steps and ramps, signages supplemented with braille and pictograms, all doors. I am using this word, all doors, whether they are kitchen, whether they are stores, whether they are washrooms, classrooms, uh, any of these auditoriums, every door should not be less than 900 millimeter clear. And why I'm saying kitchens and stores and pantries also, because there could be employee with disability using a wheelchair who will have to access all these facilities. Accessible lift, accessible toilets, drinking water units at 2 levels, and emergency exits. I'm going to show a couple of examples with photographic illustration for all of these. So to begin with RAM, uh, quickly, this is a ramp which is very steep. You can make it out. The gradient is 1:8, and the person has to struggle. This is a 1 in 12 ramp. That means one unit height, 12 unit length, and still the person is having a problem. So what we have done with our experience of using ramps and also doing a lot of mock-ups, we have made 1 in 15 as a national standard. So 1 unit height, 15 units of length. So if it is 1 feet height, you have to make 15 feet long ramp to make sure that people can move their wheelchairs without any difficulty and with independence. So even for small spaces, we can have a ramp like this, which is a ramp, we call it L shape or a dog shape ramp. And this is a ramp that goes to the first floor of the building, and you can see that there's a very good turning. The women in the wheelchair is moving around with ease, comfort, and without putting a lot of energy and effort. For the handrails, it is important that we have to have handrails on both the sides of the stairs, because anybody could have a left hand very strong, somebody could have a right hand very powerful, and also when there's a lot of people coming up and down, then you can't tell somebody that okay, the handle is on the right side, so you please move on the left side. I need to hold the handle on the right side. That's not possible. So we need to have handles on both the sides for the steps and ramps. And we see there's a nosing, there's a little bit of a protruding edge of the steps. We need to have this nosing. We need to have the handle extended beyond the nosing of the step. So it's a 300 millimeter extension. I won't give you too much of technical detail. It is available if you Google harmonized guidelines and space standards by Ministry of Urban Development. Now it's called Ministry of Urban Affairs and Housing. You can find these guidelines on Google, and you can get all these technical details there very much. The diameter of the handle is very important. We cannot have very small or very big diameter because one needs to hold on. So we say it should not be more than 1.5 inch, which is around 45 millimeters. The signage is very important, and for the signage, we want to have a standardized height of signage and also color contrast, so that everybody, people with low vision, people having intellectual disabilities, they connect with the standardized symbols and pictograms. So some of the examples I'm going to give now is that the color, it is very important that we need to have a dark blue and white color, because this is a color which is visible even during fire and smoke. And other colors, these are many other colors which are used by agencies, but these are colors which are not accredited. These are not endorsed by the National Accessibility Law. Only the dark and blue with white combination is accredited. The signage with pictograms. So these are the pictograms with people with intellectual disabilities, people with learning disabilities, people with speech and hearing impairment, they connect to it. So one knows, okay, the symbol of accessibility, international symbol of accessibility is a wheelchair. This is the sign. And whenever we provide provision for people with disabilities, this is a ramp, telephone, lift, car parking, and directional signage. And let me just make it very clear that international symbol for of accessibility is not for wheelchair users. It depicts all disabilities, all the 21 disabilities which are given in the Rights of Persons with Disability Act. So anywhere if this sign is displayed, that means we can be sure, okay, this building is accessible and we are welcome. This is an example of braille signage, and this braille signage is very important for people with visual impairment because we as sighted people can see things, but people who are with visual impairment they feel things. So this is a tactile braille signage. This person is reading out the classroom, and he will enter the classroom with this texture difference also marked in front of the door. Tactile paver are the yellow color tiles that many of you must have seen. This is there are two kind of tactile paver. One is the guiding, which has long lines, and another is the warning, which has got blisters or circles. So people with visual impairment, they use their white cane while moving on this tactile paver, and also with the shoe sole, they can make out the facilities. So, for example, this is an example of the metro station in Delhi, and this woman with visual impairment is making use of these tactile pavers, and she's moving from the concourse to the platform to the coach. So this is how independence, safety, dignity is given through a very simple addition of tactile paver in the built environment. Lift. Now, many of us, we are very much prone to saying that our building has a lift. Come over, please. You are most welcome. But if the lift size is not adequate, if it is too small or the door is too narrow, then person with disabilities will not be able to enter it. So this is the kind of lift that we want, that the call button is at a lower height, which is around 800 millimeters. Simply, the control panel is at a lower height. The internal circulation of lift is 1.5 by 1.5 meters, and people can use it easily. The lift also should have braille buttons and embossed uh, text so that people with visual impairment can make it out by feeling it. And there should also be the signage that makes it that the lift is accessible. There should be audio announcement in it so that a person with visual impairment can make out that the door is opening, the door is closing, it's the first floor or the second floor. Because they cannot see the floor marking in the lift, they can only hear and they can feel by touch. For the doors, when we're moving inside around the buildings, if the doors have these kind of small edge, it becomes very difficult for mobility aid users. So what we are actually wanting to have is a small bridge, as a small wooden or any other cement bridge, like a ramp or a slope, and people can go inside and outside freely. Similarly, the door handles and locks are important. Here you see this is a unique example of universal design. This teacher has a lot of stuff in her hand and she's opening a lever lock by her elbow. Some people having neuromuscular issues or having low sensation in their hands, they can use it with their palm. And if these kind of knob handles are provided, these are very difficult to open because you can't twist or pinch your fingers. So with the palm, this is possible, and this is a good example where the lever handle can be used by anyone with or without disability. For the drinking water unit, we must ensure that there is space underneath the basin so that the wheelchair can go very much near to the drinking water unit, and also the lever handle tab. This comes with very convenient for anybody to operate it. For the accessible toilet, this is my favorite subject because people keep saying that we have accessible washrooms, we have bigger doors, we have wider cubicles. But if the accessories are not there, if the grab bars that you see in this slide, these grab bars are missing, then it doesn't make the toilet accessible. So I'm going to show you one more important um, video which is more on how to use the accessible toilet. And this is the first toilet that we designed in Delhi Heart in 2006. And this is the first tourism spot accessible toilet. So it was built in 2000 and it's 2006, and it is a very low cost accessible toilet. The door should open outwards and it should never open inside, because if it opens inside, it will take away the space for the wheelchair. And this is very important that the wheelchair should go next to the toilet seat. If we don't do it, then the person using the wheelchair or a crutch will not be able to transfer on the WC. These are the grab bars that you are seeing here, the steel grab bars, which are used by people with disabilities to hold and then transfer independently. The placement of these grab bars, the height, the distance from the WC, everything is very important. Every millimeter counts. And now you see that there's a space for parking the wheelchair. We cannot park our wheelchair outside the door and transfer inside, because a wheelchair is a mobility aid. We need to bring it next to the WC and then transfer on our own. This space, if you're interested to know, this is 2 meters by 2.2 meters of cubicle space, which can accommodate the wheelchair. And if there's somebody who's assisted wheelchair user like me, then a person, the attendant, and the wheelchair user, all three can be accommodated easily. This is the lever handle, and if you see, the mirror is also lowered down. There's a space under wash basin, and whatever provisions you have, like in this space, we also have a hand dryer. And if you see that the switch is also at a lower height, the hand dryer is lower height, and the lady can use it with a lot of independence. I'm not saying that you need to provide a hand dryer in a accessible toilet, but what I'm saying is whatever you have has to be usable and reachable by a person with disability. So this is a wash basin which is marked by two grab bars, which are the U-shaped grab bars. And this man is a clutch user. While washing his hand, he has to remove his clutches and he's holding the grab bar to wash his hands. Also, this is very important that if you see that this is a wash basin which is higher and this is a wash basin which is lower. So this wash basin is meant for people using wheelchairs, and this is for adult height standing people with disabilities. Now, if we have two or three wash basins, we can have this kind of a universal design, one at a lower height, one at a higher height. Um, Sorry. Yeah. So this is accessible urinal, and this urinal also has a chest support grab bar for the male using the crutches. He can rest his chest on this grab bar, and then he can use the urinal easily. Other accessories which are important in accessible toilet is this U-shaped grab bar, which is a folding type. It goes up and down so that there's space next to the WC and wheelchair user can use it. We have this L-shaped grab bar, which is on the wall side, and these can be indigenously made by somebody who makes your handrails. So any local vendor, you can connect with them and get these grab bars made. In places like Andaman, in places like Assam, we have also made grab bars out of bamboo, out of wood, and they last long. Only thing we need to see that they are secured very nicely to the wall so that somebody who's holding the grab bar should not fall. This is the urinal chest support grab bar, and here if you see, it's designed so well that the space between the urinal shield is also enough for people, for a man who's using a bilateral crutch can easily accommodate himself within this space. So we do need a contrast color signage with braille, and this is what it is all about. So if it is a accessible toilet in the ladies' toilet, then this is braille for girls and women with visual impairment to make it out. My last slide, just to give you an understanding of that accessibility is not a luxury, but it's a necessity. It's a very high-tech wash basin which moves on a lure, and the lady is just moving this rod and it goes up and down. This is a high tech technology. We don't want it right now. It might be expensive also, but what I'm trying to say is that this is how people have gone further to improve and provide accessible environment for people with disabilities. At least what we can do is universal design, provide two basins at two heights and make it possible for everyone to use it. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity today to talk about some of the accessibility standards and elements. And I'm sure we can do it in our university also in Tripura. And I've given my email IDs, my website. Please feel free anytime to connect with me, and we'll be happy to provide you all information and support you in making your university the best university, the accessible university in the country. So, with these words, I am ending my presentation.